So last week we finished the bed and put everything in its place, and I am very, very happy with this. But today we're actually going to go through this and do the entire project in one video. It's going to be a little bit longer than normal, but I want to hit all the steps and I'm going to try and talk through them as quickly as possible. And if you'd like to see the individual videos, I have a link to those down below where you can find out more information of that. So let's actually dive in and take a look at the whole build. Now, I've talked through this whole thing and done several videos on exactly how to do this. And so if you really want to see those, I definitely say go take a look at the playlist. There's a link to it down below and up in the cards where I go through this entire build step by step. And in this video, I kind of want to go over some of my mindset, why I did what I did, as well as the design for this bed. Most of the time when I'm designing a piece of furniture, I'm actually just going to design what I want, what I need, what fits my function. And so the first thing I'm going to ask myself is, what exactly do I need? What does this need to accomplish? In the case of the bed, I didn't want any drawers underneath. I didn't want any actual functionality to it other than a raised platform to put a mattress on. And I particularly wanted it to be able to put the mattress on without the box spring, and so that's why there's so much bed support underneath. If you have a box spring, then you really don't need all that bed support. Just one or two is good enough for it. But in this case, I wanted to add a little bit more to that. So once I had the general idea of it needed to be a bed, I then went online and looked for bed designs, and particularly arts and crafts, mission style. Those are the styles that I really like. I like the simplicity of it. I like the function. I like square corners. I like chamfers. I'm not a big fan of Victorian flowing elegance, and especially the French Renaissance. You start to see a lot of organic shapes and things like that. That's just not my style, and so I'm looking for things that fit my style because this is going to be my bed I'm going to be sleeping in. And once I find a dozen or so pictures, then I take to my wife and say, what do you think about these? And then she throws up a whole bunch of things and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. So we go back to the drawing board until we find 5 or 6 pictures of each particular aspect that are what I want. And then I let that sit in my brain for a while and ruminate and really think through how exactly do I want to design this. And that process may be anywhere from a couple days to a couple years. And just have these ideas flowing in the back of my brain until my brain kind of comes up with the synthesis of what I want. And usually I will do the entire design, every piece, every board, every joint in my brain. And I'll go from there and build it. But in the case of making plans for everyone else, I ended up going to SketchUp and actually drawing out my end-up plans. And usually if I go to SketchUp, I'm going to change a few things. Just like if I would go straight from my brain into building, I would change a few things as I go. And it brings everything together. The nice thing about SketchUp is I can have a cut list, and it makes it much easier to go out and order what I want. I don't have to try and figure that all out in my brain, which most of the time I do, but it just the SketchUp cut lists go a little bit faster. So if you want to see that, I do have links to that down below where I have the plans that you can buy. And with the plans come the actual SketchUp files and all of that as well. So once I get to that point, then I just start working at this from the biggest piece to the smallest piece. Okay, I want to build the headboard construction. Well, the first thing I need on the headboard are the legs. And then the next thing that connects to the legs are the stretchers. And then once I have the stretchers, then I need the vertical stretchers to be able to connect the top to the bottom. And then I need the panels to go between them. And then I need the hash mark to go between them. And I start backing it out from there, and you just take it one piece at a time. Don't try and eat the whole elephant at a time. Just take one piece. In particular, like these, I was trying to figure out how in the world am I actually going to fit these, because I could measure out precisely what they should be in SketchUp, but reality is always different. Wood moves, wood changes, and so you never quite know what the exact shoulder to shoulder length is until you have it in reality. So I had to make the legs. Then once I had the legs, I had to put the stretchers into it. Once I had the stretchers in, then I could know exactly what the shoulder-to-shoulder length of these boards needed to be. And then I could cut them to that. And you can work from there. And so then once I had these in, then I could work on the panels that go between them. I could guess at exactly what those sizes are on the panels, but I'm probably going to come out wrong, and so why even work on them or think about them until I have these verticals in. Once these verticals are in place, then we can put this whole structure into the bed, and then we can figure out the panels. And you can just take it step by step. Occasionally you're going to come across steps that really get scary, like resawing lumber. And it's the type of thing that if you think about it and you try and figure out what's the best way to do it, and you're planning it and you're working through it in your brain, you'll never get there. The best way to do it is just to get out in the shop, grab a saw, and start cutting. Yes, you may make mistakes. And that's a good way to learn. There are more trees out there. You can get more lumber. And sometimes it means you have to redo a piece, and sometimes it means you change your pattern because you changed something. And there are no deadly mistakes, unless you slice yourself in some way. I really like the Bob Ross mentality of happy little mistakes, because you're gonna make mistakes. I don't care if you are a professional, been working all your life at this, or you're brand new. You're gonna be making mistakes, and so just get used to it and relax, and realize that this is a chance to change the design. Add in another tree, put another fluffy cloud over there. Put in a bow tie. There are little things like that that make the furniture very different. And I don't know how many items that I've put into my designs and shape that came about by some dumb accident. And now they're a part of how I do things. And now I do things differently because I learned from that aspect. So don't be afraid of those mistakes. Don't be afraid of the problems you're going to be coming around. Just enjoy the process and realize that when things go bad, it's a chance to innovate. It's a chance to try something new and enjoy the process. Because woodworking isn't about building the finished product. And I know this is the final video where I'm building this finished product. I'm building this final item that I can take pictures and I can show it. But that really isn't the point of everything. The point is every little step, every stroke of the plane, every curl you come across. That moment, that joy that you find that when something fits together or when something doesn't fit together, when you learn something new or that particular skill just suddenly clicks and everything comes together, those are the moments that make woodworking worth it. And so learn to embrace those and learn to look for those things that come up that you weren't expecting, because that is where the magic really happens. And so back to the project, we're going to be taking this step by step, and here we're into the panels, and these are always scary. Anytime you make thin, solid wood panels, you never know what's going to break, what's going to snap, what's going to come apart. And I really had to slow down on these and make sure I was thinking it through step by step and thinking through all of the angles and how everything was going to go together, making sure that nothing came up too short, because making these panels were rather difficult. There were a lot of steps involved to get there, from resawing to the shaping and bringing everything down to the thin sizes. And a lot of times it's worth that. Just slow down and think about what you're doing. And you'll notice that you'll make less mistakes that way, and there's less problems that come up. Now, that doesn't mean that the problems are bad, but it is always enjoyable when things come out exactly like you planned, because it's a feeling of achievement that you don't get from a lot of other things. I really like doing joinery that is shown. I like being able to see the joinery, and so that's why I do a lot of through tenons. I do a lot of drawbore pegs. I do a lot of through dovetails. I really want to be able to see how did this piece go together, and not to just show off, but to have that reality in there. You can't hide things. If the tenon comes out the other side, you can't mess up any of the shoulders. You can't mess up any of the mortise edges. They've all got to be sharp. And it adds a little bit more tension to the work, as well as just making it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to me, particularly in the way I do things. So I do like seeing all of the joinery and not hiding it. But everyone's a little bit different. Everyone's going to try something a little bit different. And that's one of the things that make this an incredibly fun sport, is that you get 100 different ways to do it. And there is no right way to do it. The only wrong way to do it, if you're doing it safely, is to not do it. And as long as you are doing it, as long as you are attempting it, as long as you are actually going out in the shop and giving a go at it, you're doing it the right way. So, have fun, relax, and enjoy the process. There is no right way. There's only not doing it or doing it. And that is one of the best ways to learn. If you are having problems and things aren't coming out your way, then relax. Go out, give it a try, and you might be very surprised. Or you might find out that, hey, it's just not working that way. Well, then try a different way. And a lot of woodworkers out there tell you that this is the best way to do it. This is the way to do it. Particularly, old masters who have been doing it for years, and they've found the way that really works for them. And for them, that is the best way to do it. But it's not the best way for everyone. And so when you hear some particular master out there say, this is the best way to do it, take it with a grain of salt. Understand that they've been doing it for years and they found that to be the best way for them. But be willing to try other things. Now, does that mean that because a master says this is the best way to do it that way, that you shouldn't try it? No, that's probably the first place I would try, because that's someone who has done the trial and error ahead of time. Go out and give it a try like that. Things like these sliding dovetails, they really scare a lot of people. And the first time I came up across a sliding dovetail, and I thought, I'm going to have to do this. I really thought about it for a while and figured out what I was going to do. And then when it actually came down to doing it, I did it completely differently. And I found a method that I really enjoy and a way that I like it. And that method has actually changed over time. At first, I would actually cut these slots using using a dovetail plane, a molding plane, and that worked really well. But then I found, I don't need to do that. And anytime I can remove a jig or a guide, I really like removing those, because it makes everything feel that much better when you can do it completely by hand. And then once a slide comes in like this and it just fits perfectly, that is so happy. And you never know when it is going to fit on the first try. And most of the time it doesn't. But get used to that, relax, enjoy the process. Don't worry about the finished product. Work on this step by step. And when things don't work out perfectly, learn from them and come back. And in this one particularly, there were a lot of little sliding dovetails that I had to figure out. And it was a great way to learn. When people ask me what is the best project to have for a beginner, I tell them there is no best project. Do something that intrigues you. Do something that interests you, and you'd be surprised at what you can learn from that. Even if you want your first project to be a Queen Anne highboy, this really detailed or elegant designed highboy with lots of drawers and dovetails, that would actually make a great first project, because you would learn a ton of different skills. You would learn carving, you would learn inlay, you would learn dovetails, you would learn half-plane dovetails. You'd learn all kinds of joints and joinery to make it all happen. And you'd have to learn all those steps to get to the project. Now, would it be perfect in the end? No, but no first project is perfect. Embrace the imperfections, embrace the cracks, embrace the odd joinery. But I can guarantee you, even if it was your first project, you'd mess up here and there, but by the end, you would have a functioning highboy that would have all the drawers and slides and everything that a highboy would need. And yes, anyone could do that as their first project. So don't be afraid, jump in. And then you occasionally come to these little things like this with the curls. I love these little things. Anytime you get a chisel and you get to freehand something and you see these curls coming off, it's beautiful. Watching an auger turn in slow motion is enjoyable. And embrace those steps, embrace the little things, and you might be surprised at your methodology and the way you do things changes, because you're trying to do it in a way that is enjoyable. And a lot of times I am doing projects in a way that a lot of people really roll their eyes at, or they're trying to figure out why I'm doing it that way. Isn't that the hard way? Well, it may be a harder way, but it's a way that I find more enjoyable. If I can use a tool freehand, I find that to be far more appealing to me. That's something that's far more rewarding, because I get to enjoy the satisfaction of knowing that I did this freehand and without any other implement coming into it. And that is an enjoyable thing to see. And it's a great way to learn. So have a little bit of fun and try out new things. Like those pins, the steel pins. I haven't seen anyone do anything quite like that, and I really enjoyed it. If you don't have perfect wood out there, then use epoxy. It fills things really nicely. I've done a lot with this, and I use a lot of lumber that other people would throw away. I actually got I think it was like 400 board feet a few years ago of white oak that was going to be turned into firewood because it had a lot of knots. It wasn't much straight grain. It was a lot of curls and twists. And I've been using that lumber for years because it's absolutely gorgeous. It's a pain to work with, but once you learn how it works and you know how it feels, it can be something that becomes your friend because you know what you're going to be getting out of it. And it's really, really enjoyable. And now we're getting down into the point of the project where things are starting to come together. And usually in every large project, you get into it and you're gung-ho and you do the first few steps and everything comes together. And then there comes a point where something's hard and you're thinking about it, you're wondering how you're going to do it, and the project starts to slow down. It kind of sits on the back burner. And it sits on the back burner for a while, and you pull it out and you work on it and you put it away, and you pull it out and you work on it and you put it away. And then there comes a point where you suddenly see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you realize, oh, I just have to do this, 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 and this, and it's done. And it becomes this all-consuming project again. And it's usually around this point where most of the joinery is starting to get done, and we're just getting into all these final little details, the smoothing of all the surfaces, the chamfering of the corners, creating the pegs to put everything together. This is the exciting part for me, and especially this where I had, I think it was 20 pegs. No, it was 40 pegs or 20 pegs. It was something. It was a lot, and shaping them all and doing what a lot of people would consider the monotonous project of doing this over and over again. 20 pegs, chamfering down 40 ends, and getting everything together. I really look forward to those steps because it's something that I can. It's something that I can wrap my brain around easily. I just have to complete this. And you take it one step at a time, and then suddenly you're getting to this place where you can put things together. And it all starts to come together, and the excitement starts building, and the joy of the woodworking all starts to come together. And yeah, as you can't tell, I'm getting really excited at this point because you start to see everything coming to life. And then you're getting close to the point of putting finish on, and you're seeing all this grain. And the more you've worked with this grain, you know what it's actually going to do when the finish touches it, and the swirls and the medullary rays and everything starts to come together. And you start to salivate about it. But usually at this point, there's also a lot of these tiny little details that get in your way. And you don't think about, oh yeah, I have to chamfer all the ends of all of those pegs. Oh yeah, I have to install all the corbels and figure out how in the world am I going to clamp these together. Oh yeah, I've got to wiggle all this together. And you just got to take it step by step until you get to that point where it's just, oh yeah, exciting. I used water locks on this. I usually would use BLO because I really like how it comes out. But water locks is really close to the same color and contrast I would get from BLO. So I like using this. It's a protective finish. And this is one of those times where all of the figure, all of the rays, all of the colors start coming together, and it's exciting. And then I realized, oh yeah, I've got to go create all the bed supports too. It's one more step, and these are like the steps that you usually forget about, and you just live on it for a while without that until some years down the road you realize, maybe I should get to that. And I don't know how many projects I have where there's like 3 or 4 little steps left on it that aren't necessary, but would be good to finish up. But at this point, yes. And I like putting together furniture in the sunlight and seeing the natural light coming in on it. It just brings everything together. So if you ever get the chance to take it out of the yard and put it together outside with the sunlight shining, definitely do it because it brings everything together, and you get all of the colors of nature popping in with the wood, and it's exciting. This was a project I will remember for years, and it matches the dresser that I made a few years ago. So if you want to see that, go ahead and take a look at that. And maybe in the future I'll be doing some end tables and other things like that to finish off the bedroom set. But I'm really happy with how this came out, and I've been enjoying sleeping on it for a couple weeks now. I'm really looking forward to years and years and years more to come. Every day I get to look at this grain and swirls, and it blows my mind how nature can bring out things like this. Just absolutely enjoyable and memorable. So there you have it. The bed is done, and I'm putting it all into one big project video. This is exciting for me, and something I've been looking forward to for a long time. And I'm looking forward to doing more projects like this. If you'd like to see more like that, let me know down below. Also, if you'd like to see the plans for this, I have a link to those down below as well. So I think that's about it for today. Until next time, have a wonderful day. This is a bed, no joke.